Hillary Clinton and her allies seriously stumbled in their Russian collusion narrative that they've been pushing for months now since the election. For some time, the tables, it seems, have started to turn back on Clinton. There's evidence of her own collusion and people on her team, including with Russia itself. Just last week, the Uranium One deal was back in the news again as we had a new report from the Hill. We received some new information. This, of course, the Uranium One deal was controversial at the time. It's being described, the accusation is that this is part of a bribery, extortion, and money laundering scheme that was conducted by Russians to get a foothold in the atomic energy business in the US before approving a deal that handed them, Russia, 20% of America's uranium reserves. This is a deal that was facilitated by during the time that Hillary Clinton was working for the State Department, and this also coincidentally resulted in a windfall of donations to the Clinton Foundation. So this was a controversial deal. Again, at the time, people thought that there was some sort of bribery going on. We had new emails released last week, and Bill Clinton actually at the same time had just happened to meet Putin. So people were discussing this last week. I was mentioning how we might hear more about the Podesta Group. Of course, John Podesta is the former campaign manager for Hillary Clinton's failed presidential bid. A few months ago, we had a number of previously undisclosed connections to foreign governments, much the same thing that Hillary Clinton and John Podesta have been accusing others of. Seems they themselves are guilty of the same thing. This was the first report, I believe, back in November of 2016. We had some, which were some new disclosures, at the time, new disclosures from this high-powered Democratic lobbying firm, the Podesta Group. They were forced to admit at the time that the Department of Justice, that it failed to file legally required disclosures of White House advocacy on behalf of a foreign government. So this was back in November. They amended two biannual lobbying disclosures from 2014 and 2015. These were more recent than other disclosures that they have had to make since. But these noted meetings and email communications between Tony Podesta, the firm's principal, and John Podesta, Tony's brother and former Obama White House official who chaired Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. When talking about the possible criminal activity by the Podesta Group, I know I've had responses that point out that John Podesta officially, I believe, is not working for the Podesta Group at this time. He was a founder of the group along with his brother. But here's one example where we have these ongoing communications. Of course, he would still have a great amount of influence on this group that he helped found. He's also talking to his brother about the group's dealings. So I'm not sure what that response is, if that's part of some coordinated campaign, or if that's some messaging sent down by John Podesta to try to distance himself from the group. But I've seen that response a strange amount of times, and it's pretty clear that John Podesta is closely linked to the Podesta Group. People are trying to make the claim that whatever happens with this Podesta Group, John is not necessarily implicated. I don't believe that that's the case. So that was back in November. Then in April, we had more disclosures. This was the headline from from April of this year. Reads Podesta Group files new disclosures in Manafort linked Ukraine lobbying. So we had even more from the Podesta Group. They filed more paperwork with the Justice Department, acknowledging its work years ago for a European nonprofit that benefited the same Ukrainian political party once advised by Paul Manafort. This is leading up to this most recent report. Had some more disclosures, and now finally, the Podesta Group's under criminal investigation. Now, this is the today's report from Daily Caller. Reads Tony Podesta and his Democratic lobbying firm, the Podesta Group. They're now being investigated as part of a special counsel, Robert Mueller's probe into possible connections between the Trump campaign and Russia, part of this ongoing Russia probe. They were talking to 3 sources. NBC News reported on this today. The investigators began looking into the Podesta Group after they discovered that the Trump campaign chairman, Manafort, worked with the firm on a pro-Ukrainian lobbying effort. What began as a cursory examination of the firm, this is how it was reported, the Podesta Group was briefly named in some reports as they were brought to speak some weeks ago about this, but there was no sign that they would themselves be under investigation. Now that does seem to be happening. So it was originally this cursory examination. It was focused on Manafort's level of involvement in the lobbying campaign. It's now become a criminal investigation focused on Podesta into the focus on the Podesta Group into possible violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, the FARA, by the Podesta Group. Manafort has reportedly worked alongside the Podesta Group for the European Center for a Modern Ukraine. This is the specific organization in question, or one of the undisclosed ones, one of the ones that was not admitted to by Podesta until he was forced to. The ECMU is described as a nonprofit dedicated to increasing pro-Ukrainian sentiment in the West. Could you imagine the sort of coverage that we would have, or the kind of accusations that would be thrown around by Clinton or Podesta? Again, if this was a political opponent, here we have clear foreign meddling, and the whole purpose of the group itself, they admit, is to, would this not be affecting the electorate or manipulating the electorate like they are like they're claiming others have done by working for a group that's sole purpose or main purpose is to increase pro-Ukrainian sentiment in the West? More from the article, they say investigators are currently examining whether the lobbying firm violated the FARA by failing to disclose their work for a foreign government. Both Manafort and the Podesta Group did not disclose their relationship with the ECMU until media reports exposed the arrangement. The ECMU is reportedly backed by the Party of Regions, a pro-Russia Ukrainian political party funded by oligarchs who paid Manafort's firms millions. So this is part of this issue, is that it would have directly benefited this foreign political party. The Podesta Group is chaired by Hillary Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta's brother, Tony Podesta. It's one of 6 lobbying firms working on the ECMU campaign, which ran from 2012 to 2014. Was designed to help secure Ukrainian entry into the EU. Mueller's team sent subpoenas to all 6 firms in August, seeking testimony from public relations executives who worked directly on the ECMU campaign. In a statement from today's report that Daily Caller is they're quoting here, a spokesman for the Podesta Group was asked about this scandal. Someone speaking for the Podesta Group responded saying they are cooperating fully with the special counsel's office, and they have taken every possible step to provide documentation that confirms timely compliance. It's pretty. I don't think that's true. It's that there's several months of them not disclosing things until they were forced to. Here they're saying that they've met all documentation with timely compliance. It's not what happened. That's what Podesta's claiming. They also said in all of our client engagements, the Podesta Group conducts due diligence and consults with appropriate legal experts to ensure compliance with disclosure regulations at all times. And we did so in this case. So they're saying there's nothing to see here. The Podesta Group, I don't think that that's true. Manafort, finally, whose home FBI agents raided in July, has reportedly emerged as the central subject in the investigation. This is what most of the mainstream media has been talking about, even though the Podesta Group was questioned some weeks ago. We heard very little about it. It's now being expanded. The focus was on Manafort's finances, primarily, and his work for foreign governments and possible tax compliance issues. Manafort left the Trump campaign in August 2016 after the Associated Press revealed his work for the Party of Regions, which reportedly included seeking favorable press coverage in prominent U.S. media outlets. Now, apparently this could carry a multiple-year sentence. I believe that this was the report. It said 5. I believe they said that there was roughly a 5-year potential sentence that could be handed down. This was from the original report from NBC News on the exact violation of the FARA by the Podesta Group and the possible punishment that they could face. They're saying prosecutions are rare. However, this is from the report. It says the sources said the investigation into Podesta and his company began as more of a fact-finding mission about the ECMU and Manafort's role in the campaign. It's now morphed into a criminal inquiry into whether the Podesta Group violated the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Under the FARA, people who lobby on behalf of foreign governments, leaders, or political parties must file detailed disclosures about their spending and activities with the Justice Department. This was not done several times by the Podesta Group. The report points out that willful failure to file the forms is a felony and can result in up to 5 years in prison, though such prosecutions are rare, they say. So Tony Podesta is officially the head of this group. There is an off chance that Tony Podesta, John Podesta's brother, could be facing a 5-year sentence for this criminal investigation. It's also very possible that it's being expanded, that the feds are still protecting Clinton, possibly. Maybe they are doing this investigation to help clean up some of the loose ends with the Podesta Group and help cover for the Podesta Group, possibly. It's unclear exactly what the motive is in this investigation, but I'm sure we will have new information, at least as it is being expanded currently. I'll follow up as new info comes out. If you leave a comment on this video, it's greatly appreciated. If you leave a like, that's great as well. Finally, I'll just point people over to my Patreon account. I'm over at patreon.com/realityreader. Thank you, everybody that has donated. It makes a huge difference. Even $1 or $2 gives me some extra time resources to put back into the channel, keep reporting on this. Patreon.com/realityreader. I have a link in the description of this video, as well as links to all the articles that I discussed. Leave a comment, leave a like. Thanks, everyone.